Good morning, everyone. Hello, Juan, Jose, Claudia, Reed, Kevin, Kat, Jerry, and Adriana. Yay! Welcome to our first day-long meditation retreat that will be led by Bhante. There is, I believe, a link for this morning's chanting. And here with Suddhāso, who will be leading us for the whole day during the retreat. It's Ayasoma speaking. So I'll pass it on to Bhante, who can give us a few instructions and what's going to happen next. Thank you.
So first we'll start with some chanting. So the link that was sent to you includes the Namo Tassa, the preliminary homage to the Buddha, the 3 refuges, the 5 precepts, and the recollection of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So we'll chant that together in Pali. So at this time I'll turn to the altar and we can all bow 3 times. And then we'll do the chanting together. So once again, Namo Tassa, 3 refuges, 5 precepts, then recollection of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So we'll chant in that order. Then I'll give some instructions on how to practice together separately today. Okay?
Thank you.
We'll start by bowing together 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Sangham saranam gacchāmi. Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchāmi. Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchāmi. Panati pada veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Kāmesu micchāchāra veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Musāvāda veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapamadattana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami. Itipiso bhagavāraham samma sambuddho Vinjacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhammasarati satta deva manussanam buddho bhagavati Swakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaniko Epasiko Panayiko Pachatam Veditabo Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ujjupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyayapatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yanidam Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Bhugala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Datineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punya Ketam Lokasati. Okay, good morning, everyone. So today we will be spending the day practicing sitting meditation and walking meditation. So wherever you are, whatever your situation is, committing this day as a day for formal silent meditation practice. So we started with establishing our moral foundation. So our commitment to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and to following the 5 precepts. And realistically, we should be doing this every day anyway. But particularly if we're going to be focusing on our practice, it's always good to remind ourselves of our moral foundation. It's always good to remind ourselves that if we want to develop samadhi and panya, if we want to develop concentration and wisdom, then we need to start with a strong moral foundation. So if we're not already committed to following the 5 precepts, and we're wondering why our meditation practice isn't going as well as we want it to, well, that's probably why. It's probably because our moral foundation is weak. It's incomplete or absent entirely, as it may be. So a building with no foundation is not solid, it's not stable, it doesn't last. And of course, nothing is solid and nothing is stable and nothing lasts. And I'll get into that probably this afternoon. But in the case of our meditation practice, we want to create a genuine basis for the development of a steady mind. So the Buddha says that the purpose of morality is to generate non-remorse. The purpose of non-remorse is to generate happiness, and the purpose of happiness is to generate samadhi. So this is indicating the direct connection between morality and samadhi. And of course, the purpose of samadhi is to see things as they really are, which is what we mean by vipassana. It's what we mean by insight or wisdom, seeing things as they really are. So we see here this basic progression. So from from morality comes happiness. From happiness comes concentration. From concentration comes wisdom. So starting with that basic moral foundation, our commitment to the 5 precepts. And from that, then, again, bringing to mind the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So if we're just practicing meditation as some kind of mindfulness exercise recommended by modern psychology, well, that's incredibly dry and dull. I mean, how depressing is that? Don't sign me up. Yeah, I wouldn't be here. Wow, terrible. But if we recollect the Buddha, if we recollect the fully awakened being, the person who, through sincere effort, through developing perfect morality, through cultivating Samadhi, through developing a deep insight into the nature of the mind, was able to attain complete enlightenment, to reach the pinnacle of infinite wisdom and compassion. That's inspiring. And to bring to mind that there are teachings and trainings that we can use, practical ways of following in the Buddha's footsteps, so that we also can reach that pinnacle of limitless wisdom and compassion. That's inspiring. And to know that there are countless people who, as we speak, are resolutely following in the Buddha's footsteps. That's inspiring. That makes me want to spend my day meditating. That makes me want to spend my day committing myself to the training of the mind. So we start also then by recollecting the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and going for refuge. So taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And this word that we translate as refuge, sarana, it literally means running to or flowing to. So I go running to the Buddha, I go running to the Dhamma, I go running to the Sangha. So there's this implication of excitement, of haste, of commitment, of enthusiasm about Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So sometimes when we hear the word refuge, it has this kind of boring, plain sound to it. Kind of like when it's raining, you go inside the refuge, or when you're out in the forest, you take refuge in your tent or something. And it's like, well, that's, again, kind of boring. I mean, okay. We all like safety. I've got that. But sarana also has this connotation of enthusiasm, of energy, of excitement, something that you go running towards. Or like the image of a stream which is flowing towards the ocean, which is a simile the Buddha used in many places to speak about how our practice carries us inevitably towards enlightenment, carries us inevitably towards full awakening, towards unconditional happiness. So this word sarana, again, commonly translated as refuge, but it has a much broader, richer connotation of meaning, a much broader emotional context, which gives us this sense of excitement, of enthusiasm, of energetic commitment to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and also this quality of flowing inexorably towards awakening. So the 3 refuges, the 5 precepts, the recollection of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, these are standard classic ways of beginning any kind of Buddhist practice. And these are things that I recommend doing every day. So not just at the start of a meditation retreat, but every day, making this commitment. So here at the monastery, we chant these things every day, because this is the basis of our practice. It's what keeps us motivated, reminds us of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So it's not to be set aside. It's something to keep in mind. As for today, so today is Vipassana day long, and many people say that it's easier to meditate in a group and it's more challenging to practice on your own. Well, Today's your opportunity to develop a new skill, the skill of practicing on your own, of maintaining dedication and commitment when there's nobody there to ring the bell for you, maintaining dedication and commitment when there's not 20 or 30 people in the room watching you. Well, actually, they're not watching you. In theory, they're doing their own meditation, but we feel like they're watching us, don't we? And that inspires us to hold still and keep practicing. Well, you're going to have to watch yourself and encourage yourself to hold still and keep practicing. You're going to have to watch yourself so that you don't get up after a few minutes, but that you stay there until the end of each meditation session. And that also means that you're going to have to be careful with your own schedule. Because, of course, when everybody else is expecting you to be in the meditation hall at 9 o'clock, then you make an effort to be there. But when nobody else is watching you and it comes to 9 o'clock and you're like, maybe I'll lie down or just take a little nap and then I'll be refreshed through the meditation at 9:30 or maybe 10 o'clock or maybe 11 or maybe tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe next week is good too. And then that's the end of the day long, and so much for that. So we have to keep an eye on ourselves, watch over ourselves, remind ourselves that this is an opportunity to make progress towards awakening. And if we throw away this opportunity and we just spend the whole day watching Netflix or playing video games or doing whatever it is we do, I don't know, looking up coronavirus memes on the internet, whatever it is we like to waste our time with. Well, I mean, that's your choice, of course. And then your life will fade away and you'll die confused and you'll have discarded a valuable opportunity to attain enlightenment. And your next opportunity might not come around for a few 100 billion eons. But if that's what you want to do, of course, free will and all that, you can do what you like. But since you've signed in today, hopefully that indicates that you're interested in spending the day practicing meditation, which is great. So I'm going to run with that assumption from now on, probably. So today is labeled Vipassana, and I should probably say what that word means. So Vipassana comes from two parts. So the prefix vi, which can mean separate or distinct or special. It can also mean without, but that's not what it means here. If it was what it meant here, that would be very amusing. But no, that's not what it means here. So separate or distinct. And pasana, which means seeing. So vipassana then is commonly translated as meaning seeing clearly, seeing distinctly. So clearly seeing our experience, distinctly seeing our experience. And this is a useful etymology, a useful definition of the word, because it pin downs quite clearly what we're trying to do. And also it's in line with a word that the Buddha used more or less synonymously, which is, actually it's a phrase, yatha bhutang jnana dasana. So yatha bhuta means as it exists or as it has come to be. Jnana means knowing, and dasana means seeing. So yatha bhutang jnana dasanang means knowing and seeing things as they really are. Knowing and seeing things as they have come to be. Knowing and seeing things in their true nature. And this is a term that the Buddha used interchangeably with Vipassana. So, for example, earlier I mentioned this progression of from morality comes happiness, from happiness comes samadhi, from samadhi comes yatha bhutang jnana dasanam, seeing and knowing things as they are. So here, again, the Buddha is indicating that samadhi or concentration is the basis for knowing and seeing things as they really are. Which is what we call Vipassana commonly. So Vipassana then one way of looking at it is that Vipassana is not a meditation method or even a set of meditation methods or even a category of meditation practice, but rather Vipassana is the state of mind when one is seeing things clearly. Or Vipassana is the seeing clearly itself. And then everything else that we do are things that we do in order to produce Vipassana, in order to produce the mind state of knowing and seeing things as they really are. So then Vipassana meditation, properly speaking, would be meditation methods that help us to know and see things as they really are, to help us to produce the mind of Vipassana. So again, as indicated in the quote that I just referred to, so when we have samadhi, then we can know and see things as they really are. This indicates that samadhi is the basis for practicing vipassana. So vipassana depends upon samadhi. A very commonly quoted sutta, and I don't remember the name of it right now. Maybe Bhante Suddhāso remembers the name of it. It's a very commonly quoted sutta where the Buddha gives 4 overall strategies for attaining awakening. So one strategy is to first develop samadhi, and then once one's samadhi is strong and firm, then one practices vipassana, develops vipassana, and based upon that vipassana, one is able to attain awakening. The second strategy is first one develops vipassana for a little while to help to bring some general stability to the mind. Then once one's mind is started to gather together to some extent, then one switches to samadhi, practices samadhi for a while until the mind is fully stabilized, and then returns to vipassana, and the vipassana leads one to full awakening. And the third method is to simultaneously practice samadhi and vipassana. And that simultaneous practice of samadhi and vipassana leads one towards awakening. The fourth one is highly debated because it's a somewhat cryptic phrase that the Buddha uses only in the sutta and nowhere else, which literally means one is seized by agitation about the Dhamma. But then at a later time, one's mind becomes peaceful and one sees things clearly. So there's a lot of debate as to just what the Buddha really meant by that fourth one. So I'm not going to go into it today because realistically, I don't want to be seized by agitation about anything, not even about the Dhamma. So I don't particularly want to cultivate that as a practice strategy. If you want to, then we'll talk about it some other time, perhaps. But realistically, every single time I talk about the sutta, I say I'm not going to talk about the fourth method. So realistically, I'm probably never going to talk about the fourth method. But everything is impermanent, who knows? Anyway, you can find other scholars who have spoken in extreme detail about the fourth strategy. So I'm going to set it aside once again. And instead talk more specifically about the first 3. So the first one is the most classic and most widely taught strategy, especially in the worlds of Theravada Buddhism, also to some extent in Vajrayana Buddhism, and in certain schools of Mahayana Buddhism as well. So this approach of first collecting together and stabilizing the mind through samadhi practice. Then, once the mind is well stabilized, then it is ready for cultivating vipassana. So when the mind is not steady, when the mind is not stable, it is not capable of seeing things as they are. It is not capable of seeing deeply into the subconscious mind. It's not capable of seeing with detail and precision each arising mind state, each arising experience. But when the mind is thoroughly stabilized, thoroughly collected, not distracted or dispersed, sharply, clearly, precisely aware, then we can see and know things as they are in each moment without distraction, without distortion, without confusion. So this is the method that I most commonly teach, and it's the method that I most commonly use because it's the method that's been the most effective for me. First, to spend some time stabilizing and steadying the mind through samadhi practice. Then, once the mind is steady and stable to at least some extent, then one practices Vipassana. The second approach is particularly useful for people who find samadhi practice extremely difficult or uninspiring, but who are interested in Vipassana practice, who feel some affinity, some enthusiasm for Vipassana practice, or also for people who have very chaotic or messy minds. Sometimes also for people of that temperament, then this can be a useful strategy. So the second strategy is to first, by practicing a Vipassana method of some sort, because it's a more active meditation usually. It's often more interesting, which means it can be easier to engage with, easier to bring our mind to it because it's interesting. We like to do interesting things. Of course, samadhi practice can be absolutely fascinating, but I'll get to that in a moment. If one has that kind of natural affinity for Vipassana meditation, but not so much for samadhi, then you can use Vipassana in the beginning to help give some boundaries for your mind. One of the similes that is commonly used is if you have a cow in a field, and here I'm talking about humane cow fields, not the horrific factory farming kind of cow fields, but like the humane cow fields where you have like a big, huge field. And there's a fence around the field, but the field that's enclosed by the fence is quite large. There's plenty of space. And your cow is allowed to wander around within that field as much as it likes, but it does have boundaries. When it comes to the edge of the field, there's the fence, and it can't go beyond the fence. So the cow is allowed to wander around quite a bit, but within boundaries. So it can't get in trouble, and it can't wander too far. So then eventually, in time, the cow becomes increasingly serene and comfortable with those boundaries, and perhaps then it's more easily trained. So similarly with one's mind, if in the beginning practicing samadhi just seems too difficult, too challenging, too much out of our reach, then practicing Vipassana is like giving our mind a big wide field, but that field has boundaries. We're only allowing the mind to move around within a defined area of activity, within a defined area of movement and engagement. And over time, then, the mind starts to get used to having some kind of boundaries, some kind of restrictions, and it starts to collect and gather together a bit more, starts to get a bit more focused and collected. Then we switch to focusing on developing our samadhi, because without strong samadhi, we cannot have deep insight. It's not possible. Without strong samadhi, our vipassana will always be shallow. It will always be weak. It will always be hazy and unclear. Then after the mind is well developed in samadhi, one returns to vipassana. So this then is not actually dramatically different from the first strategy, because it's still developing samadhi until the mind is stable and strong, and then practicing vipassana with a stable and strong mind. The only difference is that one is starting with a little bit of vipassana to help gather the mind together, to help collect the mind. And the third method, so simultaneous samadhi and vipassana. There's many ways of approaching this. One of the ways that's most well known these days is what's been propagated primarily through the schools of Chan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. So the methods which are commonly called silent illumination or just sitting. So this method where one practices letting go of all phenomena while keeping the mind extremely sharp, alert, and aware. One does not focus on any particular thing, but allows all things to fall away. So this is a very subtle and difficult practice. But with this practice, one is both stabilizing the mind because one is not allowing it to move at all. So one can develop samadhi in this way. And one is also developing vipassana in that this is effectively, it's first off, the practice of renunciation, of letting go of all things. Second, it's the practice of the perception of impermanence, because one clearly sees that all things are impermanent through this method. And third, it's the practice of not self, because one is letting go of everything, including one's sense of self-identity. So this is an example of this third strategy, the simultaneous practice of samadhi and vipassana. However, it's an extraordinarily subtle and difficult method. So I personally don't recommend trying to go directly to that method unless your mind is already well trained in both samadhi and vipassana. If your mind is already well trained in samadhi and vipassana, then you can do simultaneous samadhi and vipassana. It will still be difficult, but less difficult. So today, as usual, I'm going to encourage practicing this first approach, this first strategy. So to start with samadhi, and then when one samadhi is stable, well developed, then to practice vipassana. So samadhi, I'll talk a bit more about what samadhi is and how to develop it. So samadhi has three parts. The etymology of this word has three parts. So the first part is sang, which means together or complete. The second part is a, which means towards. And the third part is di, which means to hold. So then samadhi means holding the mind together. And it has this connotation of completeness, of thoroughness. Like we're gathering our whole mind together. We're bringing the entire mind together. So samadhi then can be translated as unification of mind, collectedness of mind. And samadhi has a few characteristics. One of its primary characteristics is steadiness, stability, non-distraction. Actually, in the Tibetan traditions, they define it very simply. Samadhi means non-distraction, which is a very direct definition of samadhi. And it's one which is actually quite helpful. Non-distraction, non-dispersion, an unscattered mind. So it's the mind which is thoroughly engaged only in a single thing. But with this kind of samadhi practice, it's also important that what the mind is engaged with is not a active movement of any sort. So there is samadhi which can arise through active movement of mind, but it tends to be much weaker than the samadhi that arises through stillness of mind. So stillness of mind is a very important element of samadhi. So samadhi then, unification, non-distraction, and stillness. This is the basic aspects that we're looking at. Another very important element of samadhi is that samadhi in Buddhist practice always comes with very strong mindfulness, very strong, clear awareness. So it's a steady, still, peaceful awareness, but nonetheless, it is a sharp, bright, precise awareness. So if there's any dullness or haziness in the mind, then samadhi is weak. And this can be deceptive because often when the mind is dull or hazy, it feels very peaceful. And since it feels very peaceful, then we think, oh, this must be samadhi, because samadhi is peaceful as well. But this is a fallacy. This is a misunderstanding. Just because the mind feels peaceful does not mean it's in samadhi. Peace is peace, samadhi is samadhi. So while samadhi is peaceful, that doesn't mean that any peaceful mind state is therefore samadhi. So don't be fooled by this. Don't be fooled by the peacefulness of a dull or hazy mind. In fact, a dull and hazy mind is one of the biggest obstacles to the development of our meditation practice. You can waste hours and hours and hours of time floating along in this dull, comfortable, peaceful haze without making a single step towards enlightenment. So if you want to do that, that's fine. In that case, I recommend using the reclining posture. It's very comfortable, it's very peaceful, it's very good for getting dull, hazy states of mind. You'll have a very nice, peaceful day. You won't get any Vipassana, and you also won't get any Samadhi. But you will feel nice and rested and refreshed, which is great. So then maybe tomorrow, if you're still alive, then you can practice Vipassana. So you can do that if you want to, in which case you can just turn off YouTube right now and go lie down and practice some reclining non-meditation for a while. That's okay. It's okay. Did anybody just sign off?
No, we had one just. Oh, actually, we didn't have one sign off.
Oopsie.
Right.
Okay, I was joking. Nobody else leave. Actually, I wasn't joking. I just don't recommend following that particular approach because it is useless, waste of time. So let's
Kevin
not go with
said,
that method.
Bhante keeping it real.
So this is one of the reasons why we sit upright during meditation, is because an upright body encourages an upright mind. When the body is held straight, vertical, energetic, then the mind tends to be similarly energetic. It tends to be similarly bright and clear. It's also one of the reasons why we do walking meditation. It's very hard to be sleepy when you're doing walking meditation. I actually don't know of anybody who's managed to fall asleep during walking meditation. I'm sure it's happened. I've just never heard of it. So sitting meditation and walking meditation, these are standard methods, physical methods that we use to support the training of our mind. So sitting meditation is very stable, it's very peaceful, while also being conducive to alertness. But it's possible to drift off into dullness and haziness during sitting meditation. Similarly, walking meditation, it's energizing, it's brightening to the mind, but because it's a movement practice, it's difficult for the mind to become very stable. It's difficult for the mind to enter deep states of samadhi during walking meditation. So we use these two postures in conjunction. We use them to support each other. So commonly, we'll be switching between sitting and walking. So when meditating together, I'll ring the bell between periods of sitting and walking. When meditating by yourself, you'll need to watch yourself and make your own determinations. So you might sit for half an hour. Well, in that case, make a clear determination at the start of the period. I'm going to sit for 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, I will get up and do walking meditation. Then I'm going to do walking meditation for perhaps 15 minutes. And then at the end of 15 minutes, I'll go and sit down for another 30. So be clear with yourself the amount of time you're going to do for each posture and stick with it. So maybe you've been doing walking meditation for 12 minutes and you're like, this is really boring. I hate walking meditation. 12 minutes is good enough. Don't give up. Stay for the other 3 minutes. Stay till the end of the 15 minutes. You're cultivating determination, which in Pali is called aditana, this power of resolving the mind on a particular action, which is a very potent skill to develop. When our power of self-determination is strong, then we can commit ourselves to doing even very difficult things, such as sitting still for 2, 3, 4 hours, and we'll do it. So we build up our resolution by not breaking the commitments that we make for ourselves. So if we commit to sit for 30 minutes, then we sit for 30 minutes, not 29, 30. If we commit to walk for 15 minutes, then we walk for 15 minutes, not 14 minutes, 15 minutes. So coming back to Samadhi. So Samadhi, as I mentioned, unification of mind, non-distraction, stillness, accompanied by clear, sharp, precise awareness. So these are the basic qualities that we need to know in order to practice Samadhi correctly. So awareness and stillness. The main method that I recommend for the developing of Samadhi is to practice mindfulness of the body. So to choose some area or place in your body where you're going to hold your attention. So a clearly defined area, it can be as small as a pinpoint or as large as the whole body. So the size of the area doesn't really matter. What matters is that the area is clearly defined and you do not move your mind from it. Hold your mind unmoving in that area. I commonly recommend focusing on your hands. So sitting with the hands together in the lap and holding your attention on this area of the hands. So it's this area about the size of however big this is. A small melon, a cantaloupe, I guess.
Maybe lift it a little bit up.
Oh, about the size of a cantaloupe. So this area about the size of the cantaloupe where your hands rest in your lap. So that's a bit on the larger side of a meditation object. If that's too big for you, another option is to focus just on the contact between your thumb tips. That gives you a much smaller area to hold the mind steady. And you might find that in the beginning, when the mind is very hazy and unclear, that a larger area of focus is useful. Maybe even feeling your whole body or feeling your entire area of your legs. So like everything from the waist down, feeling that whole area as a single object. And then as the mind becomes increasingly steady, then you can shrink the area of attention. Sometimes that's a useful way of collecting the mind. So an important point, though, with practicing this is that we are not trying to black out the rest of our sensory field. So although we are holding the mind steady within a defined area, such as your hands or your thumb tips or your abdomen or your legs, whatever area you've chosen, although we're holding the mind steady within that area, we are still aware of everything else. We just don't move the mind towards anything else, but we are aware that it's there. So you still feel the rest of your body. You're still aware of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mental objects. You're still aware of these things. You just don't move your attention towards them. You let them drift through the periphery of your awareness. Like seeing something out of the corner of your eye, you just let it drift through the edge of your awareness. So we're not trying to ignore the other sensations. We're not trying to make them disappear or go away, but we don't focus on them. We stay focused on our chosen area of attention. So again, in my case, I usually recommend focusing on your hands or your thumb tips if you want something more small and precise. And this is really all there is to this practice. It's remarkably simple. So Samadhi practice does not need to be complicated. In fact, the more complicated it is, generally speaking, the less effective it is. Simple is best. And it's astounding how difficult it is to do simple things. Because so quickly, so easily, we find ourselves pointing our mind at something else. So just keep resolutely putting your mind back on the meditation object, resolutely directing your mind towards the meditation object, not doing anything else with your mind. And the moment you catch yourself doing anything else, immediately let go of that other activity. Immediately drop that other activity. Whatever it is, it can wait until later. No matter how important it seems to be, it can wait until later. So for today, there's only one thing that you need to do. Just practice meditation. And for this first period of time, so for the morning, so from now until the afternoon talk, we're going to be focused solely on developing mindfulness and concentration, solely focused on developing samadhi. Again, the method that I'm recommending to use is to focus on your body, to choose some part of your body and to focus on feeling that part of your body as intensely, precisely, and clearly as you possibly can. So cultivating an attitude of absolute fascination with your meditation object. So if you're focusing on your hands, you do so with the attitude that your hands are the most interesting thing in the whole world, the most exciting thing in the whole world, the most fascinating thing in the whole world, the most wonderful and marvelous and delightful thing in the whole world. So we're focusing on it because it is wonderful to focus on it. We are focusing on it because it is so utterly fascinating that there's nothing else we would rather be watching than the sensations in our hands. We focus on it because it's delightful, because there's nothing imaginable which is delightfully pleasant as paying attention to our hands. If you take that attitude, then your samadhi will grow very quickly. The mind will become extremely stable and extremely sharp in a short amount of time. Short amount of time, by the way, means anywhere from a few seconds to a few decades. So your mileage may vary. We're hoping that at least in the course of a few hours, the mind will get pretty steady and pretty sharp, but your mileage may vary. See how it goes. A couple other pointers around samadhi practice. One very important one is to enjoy the practice. This is not to be dismissed. Sometimes, especially when particularly macho practitioners get into meditation practice, often they do it with this kind of gritted teeth, like torturous struggle kind of attitude, like, now I will meditate, I will concentrate. And you can do that if you want to. I don't recommend it. It's very rarely effective. Usually it just winds up with people getting miserable and dejected. And sometimes they struggle in this painful, horrible struggle for even a few years, sometimes often less. And then they give up, and they revert to the inferior life of sensuality and indulgence and forget about spiritual practice. Or spiritual practice becomes a little sideline to a life filled with depression and dejection and so on. And again, I mean, if that's what you want, it's always an option. So in Buddhism, we have options. There's the swift and the joyful path, which is the one that I'm recommending. There's also the slow and the painful path, which is the one that I'm not recommending. But there are many people who select the slow and painful path. So again, it's there. It's an option. It's not the best option, but it is there. I'm recommending the swift and pleasant path, which is to become absolutely fascinated with your meditation object, to be utterly delighted with your meditation object, to really love the hell out of feeling your body. Oh my gosh, so fascinating, so marvelous to be right here with a clear, sharp, detailed awareness of your body, feeling it right in this moment. So if you cultivate that attitude of enjoyment, of fascination, then your samadhi will grow very quickly. And another thing that you'll notice as you do this is that your body is not so painful. In fact, your body becomes pleasant because we're seeing it as pleasant. We're perceiving it as pleasant, so it feels pleasant. This means then that you won't experience much pain during your meditation practice. Advance warning, you might still experience pain because that's part of having a body. But when the painful sensations arise, if you stay with this fascinated, delighted interest in the body, then you won't be bothered by those sensations. You won't be bothered by the painful sensations, which means they won't register as pain. So this is a very important point. When feeling pain, don't turn away. Don't shut it out. Stay with your body, but not with that gritted teeth endurance kind of attitude, but rather with the delighted fascination attitude. If you can maintain delighted fascination even with pain, then it will not be painful. So again, samadhi practice. It's not complicated. But it can be quite difficult if we're not used to holding our mind steady. If we're not used to having our mind be stable and bright, then samadhi practice is difficult because it's something that's new to us, something that's unfamiliar to us. Often, even people who have been meditating for many, many years still have very weak samadhi. They're still not familiar with samadhi. Well, today's the day. Today is the day for practicing some samadhi. At least this morning, we'll be practicing samadhi. So really put your heart and soul into it. I mean, you don't have a soul, but still, put your heart and mind into it. Really make a sincere, ongoing effort to be delightedly fascinated with your body, to thoroughly enjoy holding the mind steady on the body, to really take delight in a sharp, stable mind, to really enjoy the experience of feeling your body thoroughly and completely, just as it is in this moment, right now. And not worrying the slightest bit about the past or the future. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. Technically, the present moment doesn't exist either, but we act like it does because what else do we have? So focusing on the present moment, setting aside the past and setting aside the future, and just focusing. What is the experience right now? Not what was the body like a minute ago, not what might it be like in the future, but rather, what is it right now? What is it in this moment? In fact, a very simple and potent method that we can sometimes use is when the mind drifts, or whenever there's any unclarity in the mind, you could just gently ask ourselves, what is it now? And sometimes that's all it takes to snap the mind back into the present moment. Other methods we can use, if there's a lot of distracted thinking in the mind, is to use the repetition of a word or a phrase uh, to help cut through all of that excess noise. So I like to use the word focus. So just persistently, gently repeating the word focus in my mind with a slight pause between each repetition. So just thinking focus, 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 focus. And noticing the peaceful silence between each word. So this can be a very effective way of cutting through excess noise in the mind. If we're getting lost in thought very frequently, this can be a very effective way of cutting through that. And as time goes by, then you let the gap between the words become longer and longer until eventually you just stop using the word entirely. This can be one way of cutting through excess thinking. Another way is to gently tell yourself things like, not right now, or that can wait for later. Just gently reminding yourself these things. Or shorter things like later or not now. And then, so maybe you notice you're lost in thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. You just gently tell yourself, not right now, and drop it immediately. Put your mind back on the body. With a smile, with a soft smile, gentle eyes. So again, we're not doing this practice as this like murderously painful struggle. We're doing this practice with a relaxed and joyful mind, a relaxed and joyful attitude. We're delighted that we have this opportunity to practice Samadhi. So we're not facing it as some terrible struggle, but rather we're willingly entering into the delightful practice of Samadhi. Taking joy in the practice of Samadhi. A relaxed, energetic joy in the opportunity to let the mind be completely still and knowing. So I think that's all I'm going to say for now, because ultimately what we really need to be doing is putting these things into practice. First, just a inquiry. Do we have any questions to be addressed?
We do, in fact. We also have quite a few comments. Apparently, the going to bed cracked people up. Adriana is like, only one that's tempted. LOL. But anyway, Yudi, Preeti, Matthew, Jen, Catalina, Scott, who's his first live stream today, they all tuned in. Hello, Teen, Reed, Junie, Jen. So great to see so many of you. Kat as well, Jerry, Feng, and Melvin. They all tuned in to practice together.
Great.
And we have a few questions. I'll go from the top. So Matthew asks, can you address what role samatha plays, if any, in the method you normally teach? Do you use samatha to cultivate calmness, leading to samadhi, and then move to vipassana?
So the word samatha just means peacefulness. So it comes from the word sama, which means peace, and the suffix ta, which means the quality or characteristic of. So samatha literally means the characteristic of peacefulness. So samatha it's commonly used these days as a word referring to a category of meditation methods. But properly speaking, samatha is a quality of mind. So it's a quality of mind when the mind is very peaceful, very tranquil, very serene. So absolutely, yes, you should have samatha at all times. Your mind should always be peaceful. Your mind should always be serene. So samatha is an element of samadhi practice. So without a peaceful mind, you can't get good samadhi. Samatha is also an element of Vipassana practice, because without a peaceful mind, it's hard to see things clearly. So samatha as a quality of mind, as a characteristic of mind, is an element of both samadhi and Vipassana practice. So yes, I do highly encourage developing peacefulness of mind.
Thank you, Bhante. And Kevin asks, is developing samadhi possible during guided meditation?
Yes, but it will usually be weaker than during silent, unguided meditation. Because the voice of the person giving the guidance will distract you a little bit. Not always. When your samadhi is very strong, then the sound of human voices will not be a problem. But when your samadhi is not strong enough, then human voices are one of the most difficult things to keep the mind away from. So what usually happens is the moment we hear a human voice, we immediately move our mind towards it. We drop our meditation object and we move the mind towards the voice. So human voices are quite distracting before our samadhi is well developed. So this is one of the reasons why guided meditation, although it's often useful for learning a new method, a new meditation technique that we're not used to, it's not the best option for developing deep samadhi. Okay. Next.
And Kat asks, okay, so you guys are not staying live during meditation periods. Do you recommend we set a timer on our phone? If not, thank you for this.
Yes, I recommend setting your own timers. So we'll be coming together again at 1:30. So here at the monastery, we'll be practicing until 11 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock we'll have lunch, and then have a short break after lunch, and then at 1:30 we'll come together for another talk. So you could follow a similar schedule for yourself, or you could meditate a bit longer, maybe till 11:30 if you want to. You decide. So you decide how long the sitting and walking periods will be for you. But yes, set a timer and don't move until that timer goes off. Cultivate that quality of persistence, of endurance, of determination. If you do use your phone as a timer, by the way, I recommend putting it in airplane mode so that you won't be tempted to look at your text messages or your Facebook or anything.
But we're going to do a guided meditation, right? The first guided meditation after the talk.
I see one person who's recommending that we do guided meditation after the talk.
Well, maybe we can ask people, how would you prefer to have a guided meditation after we go through all the questions? You can have some time to think about it and write your answer in the live chat. And in the meanwhile, Melvin asks, when focused on hands and then narrowing my focus to thumb tips, I sometimes get caught in between the two, going back and forth, indecisive. How can I remedy this?
Well, that's not necessarily a problem. It's kind of part of the development of our samadhi practice. But when that happens, usually what I recommend is pick one and stay with it for a while, And if it's really, really, really not working, like you've been giving it a good solid go for a few minutes and it's really, really not working, then you can switch back to the other. The danger with this is that as you say, you might just keep switching back and forth between them. So give at least a few minutes to one before switching to the other. And really give it a solid go while you're at it. So not a half-hearted, but a really genuine, solid effort. And realistically, it actually doesn't matter whether you do the whole hands or the thumb tips. It doesn't really make any difference as long as the mind is still. So this idea of size is utterly arbitrary. Ideas of small and large are just fantasies that we make up. They don't have anything to do with reality. So whether you use a small area or a large area doesn't matter as long as the mind is still. That said, sometimes you'll find a small area is helpful and sometimes a larger area is helpful. But one thing that's definitely not helpful is to constantly switch back and forth between the two. So you're better off focusing on something that you have a hard time focusing on than switching constantly between multiple things. So, and if you do switch between things, by the way, I recommend doing so in a slow, peaceful, gradual way. So, for example, if you're focusing on your thumbs and you decide that you want to switch back to feeling the whole hands, then just allow your attention to just slowly, peacefully, gradually expand outwards from the thumbs to encompass your whole hands. So not like a quick, sudden jump, but rather a gradual, slow, peaceful expansion. Similarly, if you're focused on your hands and you decide to narrow down to the thumbs, don't do it in this like sudden, jerky, harsh way, but just kind of let your attention gradually contract to the smaller area. So if you do the transition in a peaceful way, then it won't disturb your mind very much. So it won't weaken your samadhi development much. Okay.
And Jen asked, I have a bad leg and make it so hard to sit and makes it so hard to sit. I try to focus on that, but all I say in my head is pain, pain. I can't get past the pain. And Kevin made a comment saying, wow, Bhante read your mind, Jen. And she said, I know I'm a little bugged out by that.
So I don't think I was reading any minds, so you don't need to worry about that. Regarding your leg, when you have physical injuries, then sometimes you have to get a little bit creative with how you sit. So for those who have healthy bodies, then the recommendation is to sit cross-legged, optimally in the full lotus position, to be perfectly honest. Full lotus position really does help. I see somebody glaring at me, but it's true. It's true. It really does help. It's worth making an effort to develop the flexibility to sit in a full lotus position. But that's assuming that you have a body which is sufficiently physically capable. So if you're not physically capable of sitting full lotus, that's okay. You can sit in the half lotus or the quarter lotus or easier postures. You can sit in a kneeling position. You can sit in a chair. You can pile up a mountain of cushions and props and arrange your body in a way that feels vaguely comfortable. Like, it's okay. Get creative. You're not obligated to sit like a Buddha statue. It's recommended, but if it's not possible for you, then you don't worry about it. Get creative and find something that works okay for you. I remember one time I was on a meditation retreat many, many, many years ago at a Zen temple. And there was a man there who had been in a horrible ski accident. And he had broken both of his legs and his arms, and like Like he'd really, really badly damaged his body. But after he recovered, even though he had all these physical problems, he still kept going on meditation retreats. And he would bring his little mountain of cushions, and he had all his cushions arranged around him to like prop up his legs and arms so that he could sit relatively comfortably. And some of the other people on the retreat were making fun of him. Even though it was a silent retreat, people would like talk behind his back and make unpleasant remarks about him. But actually, I'm pretty impressed by this character because he broke his legs and arms and he kept going on meditation retreats. And not only did he keep going, but he found a creative way of arranging his body that worked for him. So there's no shame in having a little mountain of cushions to prop up your arms and legs or whatever you have to do. As long as it supports your practice, it's okay. That said, eventually we do have to learn how to deal with pain. Because even if you have a completely healthy body, it will still produce pain. It's one of the baffling things about meditation practice, that sitting quietly on a soft cushion can be the most agonizingly terrible experience you can imagine. So at some point we have to face that. We have to face what it is to have a body. We have to face what it means to feel pain. And we need to learn how to be peaceful with pain. And the only way we can learn that is by facing it, by feeling it, without turning away. Okay?
Great.
Any
Thank you,
other
Bhante.
questions?
Yes, there are quite a few actually. Reed asks, well, actually, Scott says, right on, today is the day, glad in the mind. Bonus points for motivation. Reed says, is Samadhi a yes or no state, or are there degrees of Samadhi? How can we assess whether Samadhi is sufficiently developed enough to shift to Vipassana practice?
Yeah, so there are degrees. So it ranges from 0% to 100%. So 0% is when you're unconscious or sleeping, and 100% is fourth jhana. So there are degrees of samadhi. It's not a yes or no. It's not a binary. It's analog. So actually, as you go throughout your day, you have some amount of samadhi just to be able to function and engage in activities. So it's a relatively low level samadhi, actually extremely low level samadhi, but it is there. And when you're engaging in your daily activities with a lot of focus and clear awareness without distraction, then you've got a bit more samadhi, even though you're engaged in activity. There's a bit more samadhi there. When you're doing walking meditation, and you're really focusing on feeling your body as you move back and forth, then you'll have even stronger samadhi. And then when you sit in meditation practice, when you really commit yourself to the meditation, to holding the mind steady on the body, then you can get very strong samadhi. So yeah, it's an analog function from 0% to 100%. It's not an on-off thing. Okay.
And Reed also asks, why the seemingly unusual choice to focus on hands instead of breath?
Yeah, so there's this persistent belief that you have to focus on your breathing. But the Buddha did not only teach mindfulness of breathing. The Buddha taught many, many, many different meditation methods. Mindfulness of breathing was only one of dozens that he taught. And mindfulness of breathing, it's very commonly taught. One of the most common meditation methods that's taught, actually. So right up there with loving kindness meditation, which is probably the other most commonly taught meditation. But mindfulness of breathing doesn't work for everyone. In fact, many people find mindfulness of breathing to be extremely challenging. For some people, it produces anxiety. For other people, it produces agitation. For other people, they just don't get it. They're like, mindfulness of breathing? I don't understand. Feel the breath? What? So uh, there's not a single universal method which works perfectly for everyone. But rather, there's a lot of different options, and we explore different options, and we try out different things, and we start to get some sense as to what methods work well for us, and also some sense as to what situations call for different methods. So, this is the way I was trained. I was not trained to follow a single method, but rather to explore a wide variety of methods and to become familiar with a lot of different ways of training the mind, a lot of different ways of practicing meditation, so that I could use whatever was most appropriate for any particular time. So, through the course of this exploration, I found that mindfulness of the body, and in particular, focusing on my hands, was much more effective for me than mindfulness of breathing. So, since it's the method that I've had the most success with and the method that I have the most experience with, it's the one that I tend to speak about the most. And also, when talking about mindfulness of breathing, which I do from time to time, and in fact, I will be later this week. I don't remember what day, but sometime this week I'll be talking, or next week? True. Anyway, I'll be talking about mindfulness of breathing at some point.
Monday and Tuesday, that will be the Sutta study class at 8 a.m. Will be split into sessions. So Monday morning and Tuesday morning.
Okay. So tomorrow and the next day, I'll be talking about mindfulness of breathing. But yeah, you can do mindfulness of breathing as a samadhi practice if you want to. In that case, I recommend choosing a place in your body and hold the mind steady on that area and be fully aware of the sensation in that area, but without distinguishing between breath sensation and body sensation. Just be aware of the sensation in that area of the body. So you might associate it with the breathing, but that's just a thought in your mind. That's just a concept. It doesn't have anything to do with reality. The reality is that there is sensation in that area. So if you hold the mind steady on that sensation, that area of sensation, then you will get strong samadhi.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we have Claudia who says, I understand what to do during lunch. What recommendations do you have for break?
Well, it depends. If you need to rest a little bit, then you can rest a little bit. Try to keep your mind quiet. If you are feeling awake and alert, then you can do walking meditation. It's also perfectly fine. Another interesting option for break time, by the way, is to do nothing. Like literally nothing. Like don't even meditate. Just don't do anything. Don't meditate. Don't think about anything. Don't do any activities. Just do nothing. Let the body and mind be completely restful. As long as you don't stir up your mind, as long as you don't agitate the mind, then there's no problem. So during the rest time, you don't need to worry about cultivating samadhi. Rather, just focus on not losing the samadhi that you have. So don't read, don't talk, don't look up coronavirus news on the internet, don't text your friends, but also don't think about anything. Don't do anything. Let the mind rest. Let the body rest. Okay?
All right. So now we have a few comments on whether or not to have a guided meditation. Kat says yes. Then we have neutral people. Scott, Reed, Claudia would like a guided meditation. Jen would like it as well. Adriana is neutral. John says hello. And Matthew says, I'd be interested in hearing a guided macho meditation. I kind of second that too.
There's a Buddhist priest I know who says there's 3 kinds of Zen. There's Soto Zen, there's Rinzai Zen, and there's Macho Zen. So we don't practice Macho Zen here.
John also says, so many monastics doing live stream these days. How about we stage a Buddhist debate?
If you want to set it up, I might be willing to participate.
Kat says, guided to start feels a bit unifying, but definitely not needed. Can dive in. Challenge 2 day long without group structure, but up for it. Any discipline check-ins feels good though. And Melissa says, hello, Melissa says, yes, maybe brief guide for Samadhi, but definitely guided for Vipassana part later. Kat also says, can we schedule in a silent work cleaning period? Could really do with an hour of more of making my home more like my monastery. Actually, yes, it is in the, so if you go on buddhistinsights.eventbrite.com, actually, we can write it briefly in the, shortly in the live chat. There's the link for today's day long, and there's actually a schedule on it. So there is the schedule that we are following here. So you're welcome to follow that one or tailor it according to whatever you prefer. Like if you'd like to do more meditation, but we have a work period here as well. Reed says, I had one more question. How can we assess whether Samadhi is sufficiently developed enough to shift to Vipassana practice?
Yeah, well, that's a hard thing to clearly determine. So just when it feels right, then you practice Vipassana. The standard answer, by the way, would be when you've entered 4th jhana. That's the time for Vipassana. But realistically, we're not getting 4th jhana today, probably, almost certainly. So I wouldn't wait. So basically what we're doing today is we're practicing Samadhi in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'll practice Vipassana. But over the course of a long retreat, like 3 months, then you might spend the first few weeks just practicing Samadhi. You might practice only Samadhi for 2 or 3 weeks. And that's enough time to make the mind extremely stable. And then when you practice Vipassana, it goes incredibly deep. And you can have some mind-blowing experiences. But for one day, there's not time for that. So you just practice Samadhi until the mind is relatively stable, and then you practice Vipassana. I'll talk more about that this afternoon.
Great. Yudi also is asking for guided meditation. And apparently John was confused. He's like, oops, is this a retreat? Sorry to walk in. And
no problem.
Mehmet has one question, and I think then we can be done with the questions and maybe take a 5-minute break and then do guided meditation. Does that sound all right? Okay, great. So last question, Mehmet asks, is 4th jhana mandatory for liberation, or is 1st jhana sufficient? As far as I know, different traditions have different beliefs.
Yeah, this is an ongoing debate. The old debate, how much jhana do you need to attain awakening? I don't have an opinion on the matter. But the Buddha did place great importance on developing jhana. He talks about it over and over and over throughout the suttas. And it's his standard definition of Samma Samadhi in the Eightfold Path is practicing the 4 jhanas. So whether you need 4th jhana or whether 1st jhana is enough, I don't know. But you clearly need some amount of jhana. As far as I can tell, you need to have some amount of jhana, or else you won't be able to break through the underlying tendencies. So you definitely need some amount. As to how much, hard to say. Um, I also recommend not worrying about it. Just do the practice. So we talk about levels of jhana. Uh, so first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. We talk about upachara samadhi, which is usually defined as being, it's actually not something the Buddha spoke about, but it's something in the later literature as kind of this intermediate stage between an ordinary mind and first jhana. So we talk about different degrees of samadhi, but these are kind of arbitrary points. As I mentioned earlier, the development of samadhi is not digital, it's analog. So we talk about this kind of arbitrary checking points along that along that analog meter, but it's still an analog meter. So again, I wouldn't get too caught up on these labels: first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Instead, I would just focus on cultivating unified stillness of mind. So cultivating this sharp, bright, clear, knowing stillness of mind. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Bhante. So it's 9:27 right now. So at 9:33, we can meet here again. I'll just put, I think, the microphone on stop. I don't know. It's the first time I'm doing this. So see you in 5 minutes, and Bhante will be offering a guided meditation. Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
That was his white. They can see us smiling. Are we on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, welcome back. So now, since there was some request for guided meditation, I'll give some guided meditation. So first, sitting upright in whatever meditation posture you like to use, which means you should all be sitting in full lotus. So why do people laugh when I say that? I'm really not kidding.
Yes.
So with full lotus position, it's important that your feet are all the way up on your thighs, with your heels touching your abdomen and your toes lined up with the outside edge of your thighs. So very important. If you're not sitting full lotus properly, you can hurt your ankles. So you want to make sure your feet are all the way up. If you can't get your feet all the way up, then you're not ready yet for full lotus, and that's okay for now. So then just sit in whatever position you're comfortable with sitting in. Take a moment to rock side to side, making sure you're settled properly on the cushion. Might lean forward a little bit and then settle back in. Tilt your head side to side, stretch out your neck. Make sure your neck is nice and loose. Can kind of stretch your whole spine up a little bit. Let it relax. Bring your shoulders back. Let them relax. Bring your hands together in your lap. So again, placing the hands together like so, the thumbs touching, and let that just settle down into your lap, resting against your abdomen. So since you're sitting full lotus, then your hands just rest naturally on your feet. If you're not sitting full lotus, then you might find that your hands slump down too far, which can put strain on your shoulders. So you might find it helpful to put a little cushion or a little pad of cloth in your lap to rest your hands on so that they're not hanging down too far. But either way, once you're settled into position, take a few long, slow, deep breaths. If you're feeling sleepy, it's good to let your eyes rest halfway open, pointed down at the ground 1 or 2 meters in front of you. If you're not feeling sleepy, then if you wish to, you can close your eyes. Especially for Samadhi practice, it's often better if your eyes are closed. But you can try either way and see what is most helpful for you. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. With each breath, letting the body relax. So a relaxed body is supportive to a peaceful, steady mind. Making an extra effort to relax the face. So letting the face be very soft and gentle with a look of serenity. Soft, peaceful smile. On a soft, gentle face. And just let your breath return to its natural rhythm, whether it's long or short, fast or slow, shallow or deep, doesn't matter. Just let it be what it is. And bring your attention to your hands. So settling the mind in that area where the hands rest in your lap. So you're still fully aware of all the sounds around you, still fully aware of any sensory impressions coming in through your eyes, ears, nose. You're fully aware of your whole body. But the center of attention is fixed at your hands, like the mind is pinned to your hands. And don't move the mind from that area. Whatever sensations appear, whether behind the eyelids, or whether in the ears, or anywhere in the body, no matter what sensations appear, we let them remain on the edge of our attention. And we always keep the center of attention unmoving, fixated, steady at our hands. And try to feel your hands as intensely as possible, like slowly turning up the volume, or slowly turning up the dimmer switch. Brightening, sharpening, intensifying awareness of the hands. And enjoying that intensity of experience. Remember to let the body be completely still and allow the mind to be still. Each moment stiller and sharper, like your awareness is a glowing ball in your hands, glowing brighter and brighter and brighter with each moment. The moment you notice your mind anywhere else, immediately put it back at your hands. No hesitation, no criticism, no disturbance. Just immediately put the mind back at your hands. Developing fascination with the sensation of your hands, a deep, profound, excited interest in feeling your body, feeling your hands. Remember to be relaxed in body. As you focus on feeling your hands, don't tense up. Stay relaxed. Keep sharpening, intensifying, brightening one's awareness. Cultivating the joy of a still mind, the joy of an alert mind, the joy of intensely feeling your hands. to the hands, back to the hands, feeling them as intensely and clearly as possible. So you can slowly, peacefully relax your posture. You can do a little bit of stretching or lightly massage any sore or tense parts of the body. Then, when you're ready, the next thing will be a period of walking meditation. So, when you're ready, you can find a place to do walking meditation. Um, in a perfect world, this is a straight path, 20 or 30 paces long. You may not have enough space in your apartment or your home. So you just find the best straight, clear path to walk. Hallways are often good, or otherwise, walking the long way across your room is fine. And just slowly walk back and forth with your hands clasped in front of you. And as you walk, keep your attention on your hands, just as during the sitting meditation. Don't look around, don't think about other things. Just keep your eyes pointed down at the ground, your attention focused on your hands as you slowly walk back and forth. And at each end of the walking path, pause for a couple of seconds. Focus attention on your body again. Then slowly turn around, pause for a couple of seconds, and then resume walking. So do this for perhaps 15 minutes. And then after that, do another period of sitting meditation. Have a silent, simple lunch. Take a short break, and then we'll see you again at 1:30. May your practice go well.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Bhante. So Kat asks, so we were supposed to eat breakfast before this section. If our stomach is rumbling, do you recommend we have a light to eat?
No.
Think we recommend to wait for lunch since it's close. So maybe do another period of, do a period of walking meditation and another period of sitting meditation, and then you can do the work period and set up for lunch. And Jen says, my cats always crawl all over me when I sit. I have one in my lap and one behind my head, trying to swap my headphone wire.
Yeah, cats are like that. What you'll notice is that when your mind is peaceful, then the cat will usually just sit peacefully with you. So don't worry about the cats because you're helping them develop good karma.
And last thing, Raymond sent a message saying, sorry, this judgment has been passed because I'm a Buddhist. I lost the protection of a job being an essential worker. Sangha, pray for me.
Okay.
Well, we're sorry to hear that, Raymond. We will be chanting actually at 6 p.m. Together with other people that will be joining us today during this retreat. And we will send a blessing to you and your family as well.
Okay. So for now, please do some walking meditation and some more sitting meditation. then have a quiet lunch, a bit of a break, and we'll see you at 1:30.
All right. See you all at 1:30. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.